There are lots of things that people can get emotional about. They can get mad, they can get sad, whatever. But they can also intellectually describe why they have that response and why they feel that way about a certain thing happening. They can describe this is bad because blah, blah, blah. And when I hear about it, I get upset, I get angry, I get whatever. Perfectly logical, like the rational matches the emotional. But if you have some beliefs, as most people do, where you get emotionally upset and you can't explain why, it's often because you have been, to use the extreme term, brainwashed. You have been mind-controlled and indoctrinated into a belief that you feel deeply in your soul, but it never approaches your brain. It doesn't actually rationally make any sense. Incidentally, this is something you can do with other animals too. Like a dog, if he poops on the rug and he gets bopped on the nose with a rolled up magazine every time he poops on the rug, he quickly learns, oh, something bad happens if I do that. It's not like he's thinking, it is immoral for me to poop on the rug. All he knows is, well, there's a connection between when I crap on the rug, they hit me, and I don't like that feeling, so I don't crap on the rug. It's just training. Or you could sit down and try to explain to your dog why pooping on the rug is immoral, and it won't do any good. He won't care, he won't understand a word you said. So there's this kind of training that you can train someone to have an emotional response with no connection to thought. It's easy to say, it's easy for people to think about that, but it's not that easy to wonder whether there's some of that in your brain. For almost everyone, there is. And I would like to bring up the example of America first. We can't have these other countries taking our jobs. Why not? Why do you give a shit? Why do you think America first is a thing you should give a crap about? I don't. In the slightest. Are you like deeply, personally, emotionally attached to each one of 300 and some million people who live in America, the United States of America? So much so that you think there's something better about some random guy you've never met and know nothing about in Montana having a job than some other random guy you've never met and know nothing about over the line in Canada having that job. Why the hell would you think the latter is somehow worse or something you should be upset by? That Canadian took an American job. What the hell does that mean? There's no such thing as an American job. There might be, oh, there's something that somebody wants to pay somebody else to do for them, and he paid that guy on the other side of that line instead of this guy on this side of that line. You didn't know either of them. It doesn't affect you. It's not your job. It's not your customer. You're not the one getting the job. Why the hell would you care? Now, if I change it to Mexico, some of you care because you're racist dumbasses and you don't want to admit it. That you literally, I don't want brown people having jobs that white people could have had. Okay, well, if that's what it is, come right out and admit that you're a racist pack mentality piece of crap. But other than that, why the hell would you care if some Mexican took our jobs? So? I mean, if somebody took your job, you can be like, oh, that's kind of a bummer for me. This guy offered to do what I was doing for less money, and the guy paying people went with him instead of me. Yeah, you can be like, oh, it didn't work out well for me. Now, if you resent that guy, you're a dumbass and kind of a scumbag. Like, if there's two people vying for a job and one says, I can do that job for, like, let's say it's a tree job, which is something I've done for many years. Somebody says, I can do that for $3,000. Somebody else says, I can do it for $2,500. Oh, how despicable that somebody bid lower on a job. There's nothing despicable about that. And if you somehow think that that's a grave injustice against the one whose bid was higher, you're an idiot. And you're an extra idiot if you don't admit that if you were the one shopping around for something, you'd be looking for the better deal too. But wait, we gotta buy American. Why? Why would you give a shit? Because I want my money going. This is what it literally means. This is how dumb it really is. I want my money going to somebody who lives on a piece of dirt inside an arbitrary line that defines the territory of a national ruling class that's the same as the one that dominates and robs me. That's what it means. That's all it means. That's literally all it means. Buy American. I'm going to buy a widget. I would rather buy it from somebody who's getting stomped on and robbed by the same bunch of political crooks that I am than buy a widget from somebody who gets stomped on and robbed by different crooks. Why? Why the hell would that matter to you? There's one reason, because you were indoctrinated to think like a pack mentality subject of a ruling class. So you feel completely irrational, random, arbitrary loyalty to other people entirely because they're inside that line that defines the territory of a political ruling class. That's what a country is. Now, I know lots of people, no, our country is about patriotism and freedom and whatever random bullshit I was taught to believe. No, it's not. What a country is the territory of a ruling class. That's all. All the emotional bullshit, all the psychological attachment you've been trained to feel doesn't change the fact that that's what it means. So for you to care that buy American first, America first, we don't want our jobs going overseas. I don't give a shit where a job goes. Now, if I'm bidding on a job, like if I'm bidding on a tree job and somebody underbids me, I can go, darn, bummer, I wish I got that. Getty is the money. Okay? Should I resent and hate that guy? No. Should I resent and hate that guy if he lives on the other side of an arbitrary line made up by politicians? No, that's absolutely bonkers and idiotic. It's literally slaves on a plantation resenting other slaves for being on different plantations. That is patriotism. And I know a lot of people are going to wiggle uncomfortably because I said that. Patriotism is absolute bullshit. If by patriotism you mean attachment to the country, which is just a piece of dirt ruled by a certain group of political parasites. That's how you define a country. That's the difference between right over the line in Canada and on this side of the line in Montana or wherever. That's the difference. Different ruling class claims the right to boss them around and steal their money. And on this side, that ruling class over in D.C., who claims the right to rob you, if you're American, also claims the right to rob the guy in Montana. Should you have some emotional, psychological attachment to him because you get abused by the same crooks? What the hell is that? And it could almost make a little bit of sense. It would still sort of be bogus pack mentality crap if you're like, well, I want my family members, let's say just immediate family members. Like I'm glad if, my daughter was trying to get a job and she got a job, and if somebody else got it, I'd be like, bummer, that's too bad. Am I going to hate the other person for getting the job? No, that would be obnoxious and rude and stupid. Do I sort of want what's best for my daughter more than for some random stranger? Yeah, that's just kind of biologically wired into people. So that attachment is actually, at least there's a biological reason for it. There's not a biological or rational or any reason for me to think, well, yeah, I'd be upset if some random guy in Alaska who was doing some job got fired, and instead they hired somebody in Portugal online to remotely do some job. Ah, that's an outrage. How could that random person I know nothing about take that job from the other person I know nothing about and have no connection with? But these are so deeply ingrained in people, and they're so emotionally attached, that I bet this video is going to piss off a bunch of people, and they won't be able to say why. Because they're just trained dogs. All they know is, when that bell rings, I water at the mouth. Pavlov reference. You can look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. You have that angry reaction because you were trained to have it, not because there's any rational, sane basis for patriotism or thinking America first or buy American. Why the hell would you care? It's just people. You think everyone inside that line is good and everyone outside the line is bad? You can't be that dumb. So if a better human being outside the line somewhere got a job and some horrible scumbag American got fired, like, objectively speaking, wouldn't that be an improvement? Wouldn't you rather better human beings be getting better things in life than scumbags? Or do you think accidents of birth and nationality actually determine the value of a human being? Now, the thing is, that is the foundation of nationalism. You have to sort of think that to a degree. That people inside this arbitrary line made up by politicians are somehow more important. You can't not think that if you're a nationalist or patriotic. If you believe in America first, what you believe is everybody but America second. Why? Why the hell would you have that view? Well, it's because you got indoctrinated. But see if you can come up with some rational explanation for why the hell that makes any sense. It doesn't, but there's so many people who deeply feel this attachment to something they can't define, they can't describe. They wave the flag, which, sorry, that's just Pavlovian bullshit too. And by the way, I felt it. I felt the emotional attachment, pledging allegiance to that flag for many years of my life. Until I recognized, oh, I'm a trained dog. That doesn't actually mean anything. I was just trained to feel good and to feel emotional about America. And if you had asked me back then, why, I would give the same stammering, nonsensical bullshit that most of you will give when I ask you, why the hell are you attached to America and the American flag? Well, to me, it means freedom. Yeah, well, in real life, it means a republic, which is a ruling class. To the republic for which it stands. A republic is a form of government. A government is a ruling class. You were trained to feel loyalty to political masters. That's all. That is the literal, indisputable, factual reality of what that is. Now, you're not going to like it because if your emotions say, but it feels good, your brain isn't going to want to look too closely and go, do I feel good about something that's not only completely irrational, but it's all about enslaving me? Because yes, if you're patriotic or nationalistic, you have an emotional attachment to something that was put in your head to make you a slave and for no other reason. To make you feel camaraderie with the fellow victims of the political crooks who boss you around. Yeah, if you get bossed around and robbed by those politicians, then you're American like me. We're going to wave the flag that means, well, we're going to pretend it means freedom, even though the average American is literally less free in his day-to-day life than almost anybody in the world was, except literally an outright chattel slave 100 years ago. Because the technology has allowed government to monitor and control and regulate the crap out of way more aspects of people's lives. Even feudal peasants, a bunch of them most of the time would live their lives. Yeah, they'd get robbed by the feudal lord, authoritarian bastard. But on a day-to-day basis, they weren't like, do you have your permit to build a deck? Feudal peasants could build a frickin' deck. without permit. They could have a lemonade stand if they were in trade with somewhere where lemons grow yet. And I've said this before, and most people never think about this. In Nazi Germany, the average German, if they weren't like Jewish or Gypsy or one of the targeted people, the average German was far, far, far freer under the Third Reich than the average American is today. What can you do without government permission today? I mean, you can do some things if you hide in or quiet and do it under the table. What can you legally do without government permission? Work? No. Produce something? No. Buy something? No. Sell something? No. Work somewhere? No. Build anything anywhere? No. So does that flag mean freedom? No. It means you were emotionally trained to feel an attachment to political psychopaths who view you as livestock. Sorry to be so blunt, but that's what your nationalism and patriotism actually is. It's just crap. And if you believe in America first, and buy American, and wave the flag, because America, I'm proud to be American. You're proud of an accident of birth defined by certain people bossing you around and stealing your money, which necessarily means everyone else in the world you view as, at least in some way, slightly less important. Because you don't want that other random person you know nothing about getting an American job. We can have our jobs shipped overseas. The hell do you care? If it isn't your job, what do you care? Also, you're a giant hypocrite, because if somebody in America is selling you something that's way too expensive and you can buy a cheaper version from somewhere else in the world, you probably do. In fact, you're probably watching this. In fact, it may be a certainty at this point. I don't know enough about the technology. Somebody else can chime in the comments. It may be a certainty at this point that you are hearing this precisely because you bought stuff made in other countries. Made in Japan, China, Taiwan. Because that's where a hell of a lot of electronics come from. Is there something evil about that? You should have bought inferior products from somebody inside this line. Why the hell would anybody think that? Yet tons of Americans think that. And Trump ran largely on the America first, which was absolute bullshit. It's ruling class first, U.S. ruling class first. Well, U.S. ruling class and ruling class of Israel, probably ruling class of Israel first, and then ruling class of U.S. Human livestock, that's the population of the country they don't give a shit about. Trump never has. He's knew how to manipulate you and your stupid indoctrinated feelings into going rah-rah-rah and empowering him, despite the fact that he's obviously a narcissistic megalomaniac. He doesn't actually give a shit about you, but he knows how to say words to tap into the training that you've had to feel emotional attachment to absolute crap. Meaningless bullcrap. Like which piece of dirt somebody happened to be born on. So I'll probably upset a bunch of people by saying that. I could probably just wrap it up there. Oh, I will wrap this up with a a graphic from Jones Plantation, which, if you haven't seen Jones Plantation, I dare you to go watch it, especially if this video made you uncomfortable. Go watch it. Even if it didn't, go watch it. But I will leave you from a little quote and a little image from Jones Plantation, which perfectly sums up the reality of what is going on in the minds of patriotic or nationalistic people without them noticing. And they're not going to like thinking about it. I didn't like thinking about it when I transformed from nationalistic, conservative, yada yada, to somebody who actually believes in freedom and opposes violent ruling classes in principle. Wasn't fun for me. It's still the truth. So I dare you to watch Jones Plantation and then tell me what part of that isn't realistic, isn't accurate, isn't the truth.